It's your smell. What the bird is barbecuing.
G'day fans of the CPC, it is TheVerd here, the coach of your Adelaide Zydingos, and we are here with our Week 2 match for this league up against Joost, I believe his name is, Joost, coach of the Angels of Beheeyeim, I don't really know, it's hard, man. But basically, he's got a very scary team. I'm not going to go into too much depth on the team builder for this week just because this is a divisional rival, so I'll be playing him again later in the season, so I want to kind of hold a few cards a bit close to my chest for when we do end up rematching each other. But basically I went with a very kind of aggressive team because he had a lot of threats and whatnot, so basically he brought more or less the team I expected. I kind of thought maybe Florges would be there. I also kind of expected potentially for him to bring the Gore guys, as I felt it was his best Terrakion check, but he didn't bring it. I chose to bench Dragonite this week. I was very tempted to bring it just because Dragonite always has a good matchup, but he did have a Mega Aggron, which was a very hard check to it, so definitely didn't want to take that risk, but we are going to kick things off here in this battle. As I do lead Terrakion, he does lead Aggron, and turn 1 I was looking at his team being like, right, he doesn't have a good switch in for Terrakion here, but at the same time, like, he can't risk letting his Aggron get weakened, because if you look at my opponent's team, it is by far his best check to Weavile. Nothing else really wants to come in against Weavile, it kind of just destroys the rest of his team, and so I felt that, you know, also I guess the thing I was looking at was that Aggron can't really touch Rotom at all. Rotom is a very good check, also Blastoise can just switch in against it, so I felt that actually what Joss would try and do here is go for the Toxic or the Stealth Rocks. It made a lot more sense in that situation to go for that, or to switch out to maybe like something like Espeon or Landorus to try and take advantage of the situation. I didn't think he would stay in and attack because it was a big risk for the fact that if, you know, I SD'd up, Iron Head does not knock out Terrakion, and I could just then go for close combat, which definitely kills something on his team, and that's a major risk for him to take, to lose a Mon by turn 2. And for me, I just felt like, you know, I'm a banded Terrakion at this point, so I can just click close combat, and if Aggron does get weakened, then as I said, it just opens a massive door for Weavile to just come in and kind of clean up his team. So I decided that turn 1, I'm going to go straight for the close combat, and he stays in, and I'm like, well, surely you're going to go for Rocks here. I get off a ridiculous amount of damage, and he just Iron Heads and knocks me out, and I'm like, shit. Okay, so I go Stoice. He has no reason to keep Aggron around, so I'm going to just go for the Aura Sphere, knock this thing out, because the other thing about this matchup was that if he didn't bring Florges, Blastoise had a really good matchup, and he didn't, and I was like, oh, okay, so he's lost his Aggron by turn 2, which means that my Weavile is looking very, very scary for his team to deal with, and also, I guess, maybe Blastoise is a bit more scary, not like, I think Aggron could have not really dealt with it anyway. He goes into Miltank, which was interesting to me. Again, this is like the only other thing that I saw that could really check my Weavile, and so I was like, well, I'm just going to attack this thing. I probably should have gone hard Rotom, but I was like, well, maybe he's going to go for Rock, so I'm just going to go straight for the Aura Sphere. As he does outspeed me, I do fire off the Aura Sphere and get off a good amount of damage, even with Chople Berry. That does a ridiculous amount. So that would have OHKO'd without the Chople, which tells me he is definitely physically defensive, but right now, he's either going to go for Rocks or Body Slam, trying to get that power. I don't really want him to get the power because I would rather have Blastoise being able to be, you know, at a good range of health, maybe to deal with Kyurem. I can still potentially live a Fusion Bolt from here, so I'm going to play it safe, go into my Rotom here as he does go for the Body Slam. Now on this turn, I was caught in a couple of decisions. Basically, the first thing that came to mind was, let's burn this Miltank. Let's just burn it. If he goes into Espeon, then, you know, he Magic Bounces back to me. It's not too bad. I don't really mind getting burned here. I can kind of handle Espeon with this Rotom set. I am designed to deal with things like Espeon and Lando, so not really too scared of that situation. But then I thought in the long run, like, well, if he goes and switches, it's bad. If he goes for... The thing I looked at, though, was, right, if he goes for the Milk Drink here, I can Volt Switch out to my Nidoking and, you know, start pressuring his team, because I do have the, I do have a lot of really good moves to take advantage of the situation, so I do choose to go for the Volt Switch here. So he actually goes for a double Body Slam. I think what he was doing was expecting me to maybe want to double, or I think what he was actually expecting was my Rotom to actually be faster than his Miltank, so he could catch me off guard, but I am actually slower. I do get that Volt Switch out to my Weavile, which does basically get a free kill. I can click Knock Off, and something will die, and he does decide to sack off his Miltank, so that's perfect for me. That goes down, and at this point we're up 4-5, but Kyurem comes in, so he still has probably his 3 biggest threats, I feel, on his team, being Kyurem, Landorus, and Greninja. At this point, Kyurem is definitely a big threat. I don't really have a switch in for Kyurem on my team. My basic plan was just to pressure it enough where it never really threatens me. Low kick does an obscene amount of damage to this Kieran, but if he is scarfed, then it's a massive threat. So my best play, I felt, was predicting a potential fusion bolt here, going into my Nidoking, because I do have a bit of bulk in there to be able to take a hit potentially from this Kieran, and I did feel like a Scarf was potentially his best set, and if he does lock himself into maybe like Outrage or something, then I can get a revenge with potentially Teeny or Weavile itself later on. So I do choose to go to Nidoking. And a funny thing kind of happens here. He goes for Outrage, and he gets poisoned because I'm actually Poison Point. Yeah, I'm a very odd Nidoking set. I'm not really going to go into it too much detail because, I mean, I could bring it again. We never know. But basically the thing was, though, that with Poison Point, it sucks that I poisoned him this turn. However, regardless of if I poisoned him this turn, it was in my favor to poison him in the entire battle. Like, he was going to hit me twice with Outrage. And so it made a lot of sense, like, that, you know, it's in my favor for him to get poisoned regardless. But I am just going to stay in here, and he's going to get poisoned down. I go into Blastoise. Now, this is the big turn. Okay, so he was at 76%. If he was Scarfed, Weavile could definitely not live in Outrage, so I don't want to risk that. Rotom could take a hit and go for a Hex for really good damage, which I was very much considering here, as that would put Kyurem definitely in range of my my Victini, which is Scarfed in the situation, which looked really good in this end game, looking at his team. But I decided to go Blastoise, which was a bit of a contentious decision because it did basically deal with Greninja, kind of deal with Espeon. The reason I did it, though, was because my Rotom was able to deal with basically Lando, Greninja, and Espeon by itself. Like, Rotom could do that. And I knew from the calcs that an Adamant Kyurem's Outrage would not kill my Blastoise. And I didn't think it was actually Adamant because it didn't do as much as I expected it to do to my Nidoking, but I knew that my Blastoise could live this Outrage. I could fire off an Aura Sphere because he was locked in for one more turn. Even if he wasn't locked in, it wouldn't matter because I could just either Protect to suss out, or I could just go for the Aura Sphere regardless, as his switch-ins were an Espeon or a Landorus, both of which don't really want to take that. So it was fine, and if he wasn't Scarfed and went for the Fusion Bolt, that also just means that my Weavile could just come straight in, revenge it, and at that point Weavile basically had the game almost on lock. So it was easily my better play to do here. I could have gone Victini, potentially in U-turn and gone into Rotom, but as I said, Rotom can kind of deal with everything on his team right now, so all I needed to do here was basically live this Outrage, which I do the calcs I would be able to do, and if I live the Outrage, then I would be able to basically, if I live the Outrage, I would be able to kill off this Kyurem. Yes, my Blastoise would be sack fodder, but because I have a Life Orb Weavile plus the Scarf Victini, I kind of needed sack fodder for the end game, but as you're going to see, he crits me. And this really, really sucks. This matters a lot in the course of the battle. I'm going to go into Victini and just fire for U-turn. The reason I do this is because V-Create did knock out Kyurem from there. It was actually a roll to potentially knock it out. I knew Rotom could take a potential Outrage, but there was also a chance for him to hit himself for Confusion. I said, do I go to Rotom? And he does hit himself for Confusion, and now basically he's at a range where he's going to die to Poison. Now, if I had Resto Chesser, this would be a freaking ideal turn because he would just die to Poison. Unfortunately, I don't, and what I should have done here, though, definitely for sure, was gone for a Volt Switch, as in this situation, Kyurem was going to die to its Poison, and I could have got off the Volt Switch here, kept Rotom around as a potential sack, gone into something like Weavile or Victini to pressure the rest of my opponent's team. Would have been a lot smarter for me, but instead, I believe I choose to go for I do go for the Volt Switch. Okay, I make the right play. Good work, me. Okay, I did go the right play. I go Victini as Kyurem does die, so I make the right play there as he goes into Lando. Now, I was a little bit worried at this point. I was like, maybe he's Scarf Lando, but if he is Scarf Lando, that's fine because Knockoff doesn't knock me out, and if he goes for Earth Power and knocks me out, that does allow my Rotom a free Pain Split, and at this point, Rotom can, like I said, handle pretty much everything on his team, so I was totally okay with that. I do go for the U-turn here to scout what he would like to lock himself into. I get a bit chip damage on there as he does, and I go out to Rotom here. Now, in a perfect world, I would have actually just gone out to my Blastoise if I still have. Well, no, I wouldn't. I would have stacked off Blastoise. So basically, okay, if Blastoise had killed the Kyurem, then I would have had a full health Rotom and also full health basically Victini and Weavile, and I would have been knocked out. And after that, I'm assuming he would have gone either into his Lando maybe because I was at low health, or anything just to pick me off. But if he'd gone into, say, like Ninja to pick me off, then I could have gone into Victini, gone for the U-turn. If he'd gone into Lando, then I could have gone into Weavile and just pressured his team immensely more, still had the Rotom in the back. So it just would have been so much better for me in that situation for sure to just pressure his team. But unfortunately, I'm stuck in this corner, and the problem is I just needed one more sack in this game, because I can kill this Lando, but then Greninja's going to come in, and I can't knock out Ninja with low kick, unfortunately. If I had Brick Break, I could, and then the issue is like Espeon in the back as well, so I had to kind of play this carefully, but at the same time I was also just really triggered, because that crit seriously put me on the back foot. I'm going to Ice Shard. It turns out that he was a Life Orb Lando. Crit definitely didn't matter, as I do knock out Lando. Now this is where it was a bit of an iffy turn. I had to kind of contemplate what I want to do in this turn, because Ninja is a massive threat. And I was like, well, I could go for low kick, because the way I saw it as my win con was that low kick could do a maximum of 92% to this Greninja, and if it did do the max damage, then a Life Orb hit would knock out Greninja. And that was probably the best thing that could happen to me at this point of the game, was if I could get that hit off. That would just be perfect. I was thinking also about, in hindsight, I should have clicked knock off, guys. The reason for that is because if this is the Life Orb Ninja, then I would have knocked it off. Meant that Surf wouldn't have done as much to me. Potentially could have lived Surf plus Shuriken, because like Weavile has quite good special defense. And if that was the case, then I would have been able to hit Sylveon with a move. Then Scarftini comes in and just cleans. And the big reason for it, as you're going to see, is that I completely forgot about Torrent, and I do knock this Greninja down with a low kick. I get a min roll on low kick as well, just for my troubles, which does end up being a little bit annoying, definitely on this next turn. If I had got a standard roll or got a high roll, would have been a lot better for me, but regardless, we do get a pretty low roll on that one. And the problem with Torrent is it's actually going to boost the Water Shuriken, and as you're going to see, that's going to matter a ton in this endgame, as Life Orb Surf does knock me out. And I realized that if he was not in Torrent range, I would have been fine, but because he was in Torrent range, Water Shuriken's going to do a ton to me. Now, it does turn out that he is a Focus Sash to Espeon, so there's only really one way I can win this from here, guys. I basically have to not take as much damage from Water Shuriken, and I have to lock myself into U-turn. The reason for that is because since he's a Sash to Espeon, and I was fearing the Sash to Espeon in this matchup, I decided to lock myself into U-turn. The reason for that is because if he goes into Espeon here, because I could just lock myself into V-Create. Since I am Scarftini, it would guarantee knock out the Espeon. Of course, I could have locked myself into Bolt Strike too, but V-Create definitely knocks out Espeon. At this point, like, I don't want to risk another crit, so I was thinking potentially what he could have done is switched hard out to his Sash to Espeon here, taken the V-Create, then would have outsped Victini on the next turn, damaged it, then it would have gone for another V-Create to knock out Espeon, and then Ninja came in and cleaned up. So for me, it wasn't worth that risk of clicking V-Create on the off chance that he could double out to his Espeon. I decided to click U-turn, as there is a potential for him to save this Greninja, try and weaken me with Espeon, predicting other moves, and if he does Water Shuriken, I just need low rolls, and he does Water Shuriken. It does 25%, which is not ideal. Luckily, he only gets 2 rolls and does die to the Life Orb, and it comes down to this. Basically, Espeon, if it is a max special attack Espeon, Shadow Ball does about 50 to 58%. Now I'm at 51%, so there's a very, very good chance that it does kill me. I have like the slimmest chance of living. However, that is if he is max special attack. I was hoping maybe he wouldn't be. I was hoping potentially that he would be something different, but unfortunately, as you're going to see, and this comes down to the fact that, like, this is where I wish I still had my Rotom around, even just as a switch in, because if I had Weaviles, like, in that situation against Greninja, I could have gone out to my Rotom to take one hit, and then take another hit from Ninja, and then after those 2 Life Orb turns, it would have definitely been in range of low kick from Weavile. I then could have gone for knockoff, even if this was sashed, then Victini comes in and kills it, so that crit on Blastoise really did suck, because if it didn't happen, I do genuinely feel like we would have put ourselves in a position where we would have won in the end game, but unfortunately, as you're going to see here, I'm going to click U-turn. I don't get a crit, it wouldn't have mattered, and he does get the roll he needs to kill me, so we are going to end up actually losing this game. I'm not really like too upset with it, to be fair. Like, at the end of the day, it would have been better if he beat me fair and square. I would have been able to handle that. I'm a big guy, but like, it's more frustrating when he basically won the game through a crit. I don't feel necessarily that he outplayed me at all in this battle. I think, you know, he did quite well with the team that he had. Definitely didn't expect a few things on there, but I genuinely feel like the battle was in my control for the entirety of it. I made all the right plays at the start, was putting him under all kinds of pressure, and it was just that one turn, that one crit, that basically made me have to change my playing style, and I unfortunately wasn't able to adjust. Yes, I could have clicked knockoff against the Greninja, that would have been better, but at the same time, I could have also got the roll with low kick to make it die to Life Orb, and if that had happened, then it would have been Scarftini versus Espeon, and I could have just clicked U-turn twice. Shadow Ball would not have knocked me out. I don't even think a crit from that range would have knocked me out, and I would have won. So there was a lot of different variables there for sure. I definitely could have played better in the late game, but it's very hard, and I know a lot of you guys will agree with this because you are battlers yourselves. When there is a bit of hacks that occurs, it can throw you off your game a little bit, and I will admit that I was thrown off my game at this point, and I just didn't make the right end game plays. I do apologize for that, guys. I don't really enjoy losing that much, and it's very frustrating when the only times I seem to be losing these days are through hacks. But you know what, that's a part of the game. There's not really much I can do about it. You know, congratulations to Joost. You know, he goes to 2-0, I go to 1-1. But we do have another divisional match next week against the Connecticut Crocodiles and 681 Shadow, really good friend of mine, so gonna be a really good game. Hopefully we can bounce back from this. As you know me, I don't really like to lose, so we're gonna try and bounce back. I do apologize for the loss though, guys. Definitely gonna have to bring my A game next week, but I'm hopefully gonna be able to do that. So yeah, this is TheVerd, and I'm out this bitch.